plant nursery is quite like a children's nursery, a kindergarten for plants. In a nursery, we select good, healthy plants which can then assure us that they will survive once they are planted in the wild. That is why we have a nursery. But a nursery is something which assures us that plants will be strong when they are in the wild. Depending on the kind of planting we want to do, plant along a watercourse, streams or springs, we may want to reforest a degraded area in a dry land, or we may want to reforest a moist forest area. We may also want to reforest specific species because certain species are missing from a forest because they've been exploited. So depending on the kind of reason, we will have specific kinds of nurseries. To establish a good nursery, there are various stages we need to go through. The most important one is seed collection. So for seed collection, we need very good field workers who have been doing this job for a long time. Somewhere in their minds or somewhere in their records, they would have good mother trees for seeds. That is, every year they know exactly when a certain tree will produce seeds and they go to collect them. After the seeds are collected, one needs to bring them back and usually dry them. And if the seeds are covered with any kind of pulp, they need to be removed. The pulp needs to be removed and the seeds dried well in the sun. One needs to be attentive about the viability of different seed species. But on the whole, when we are dealing with seed collection and seed sowing, after the initial period of storage, dry good storage, we need to sow them. So the next stage while sowing them is the preparation of beds. High beds, slightly high beds, that is at least 30 centimeters high, with the right mixture of manure, sand and soil, need to be prepared. It is advantageous to have small channels along the edges of the bed for watering, especially if the seeds are very minute. Many seeds, the size of figs, for example, the fig seeds are very minute and they need to be watered in such a way that the seeds don't all get washed away in the bed. So one waters the channels along the side of the bed. There are certain tricks while collecting seeds and while working in nurseries. The availability of ready-made saplings, if one can procure them, it saves us a stage, the stage of making seeds germinate and waiting for them to germinate. Once the seeds germinate in the seed bed, one waits for at least 4 leaves before they are moved to bags, and depending on the size of the sapling we expect, we choose the size of the bag. Once they are in this bag, we wait for at least 6 months to a year, depending on the species again, before we can move them for planting in the wild. So these are the various stages. During these stages, one has to be careful about how we water them, the direction in which all the bags are arranged. In a very tropical country, we arrange them usually north-south because we don't want the sun right through. Or we use shade nets if the sun is going to be very hot and the nursery is in an open place. So we need to take care of the amount of sun our saplings get, because the sapling stage is going to be the most delicate stage. When the plants are already in bags and arranged in rows, we usually keep the rows, one is it's easy to count, and second is it's easy to walk between different rows of plants and bags so that we can water them easily and we can continue to weed the bags through the year. We usually keep bags in rows of 10 and in columns of 100, so we have 1,000 plants per block. When we transplant a plant from the seed bed to the bag, Usually we just make a hole in the soil of the bag and put the sapling into the hole and then give it a squeeze so that the soil touches the plant and the roots. This is a very important part, simple and very minor. If the squeeze is not correct, the soil does not touch the roots. And without us knowing why, the plant may wilt. And if they are left too long in the bag, the roots tend to come out of the bag and go into the soil. Another important point is root pruning. When there are plants in a bag and the roots stick out of the bag and go into the soil, those roots need to be pruned and then the bag shifted to another place. Once the plants are in the bag, this is usually done at dusk after the sun goes down. The plant needs to be watered. And this wound, in some sense, has to heal overnight and over the next few days. But unless we do this, we'll have our plants stuck in the soil. For planting, we need to be sure that planting material we have, that is the plants in the bags that we have, are healthy and strong enough to make that last step into the wild. Because once they are in the wild, they are not going to get daily care. We need the plants to be more than 6 months at least. For smaller plants, we can have a spacing of 1 or 2 meters. That should be fine. But the spacing depends on the kinds of mature trees or plants that we expect. Usually when we are planting, there is a tendency to plant too close, and that can create problems later, also in the pruning. Finally, what I'd like to say is, working in a nursery is a very, very long-term task. And usually nursery workers, especially the field workers, people who collect seeds, climb trees, work with the soil, are very, very underestimated in our large goal of reforestation or replenishing our degraded forests. The least recognized people are the people who actually work in nurseries.